Like me, you were probably drawn to this game because of its crazy, vivid art style. I personally really like the fact that everything's always in motion. It's a bit of a callback to the classic cartoons, and that makes everything feel a lot more lively. And even though the style and coloring is stark and simple, there's all these amazing character details, like this dude who has tan lines around his eyes. But a more important detail is probably our own POV. The main character's name is Hannah, codename Shooty. She's a short, blonde, violent girl, and the game is played from her POV. And when everyone's taller than you, really tall characters can become pretty much imposing because of the height difference. It's really crazy. I just love this. Now you might brush this game off as being a bit simple. Like maybe just judging from the gameplay, it looks like a typical action shooter with, cartoon graphics and heavy sarcasm. What if I told you this is actually an interactive novel? So I don't want to talk about mechanics at all. I actually just want to talk about the story. One of the things I really love about this is that everyone's stupid. Our enemies are stupid, our allies are stupid, the main character is stupid, like we, the people, just milling about, they're all kinds of stupid. Everyone, like Beavis and Butthead levels of stupid sometimes. Take, for example, there's a literal invasion happening and most people are just going, wow, what, really? Okay, an invasion? Crazy. And then they just go on with their lives. I've honestly laughed at so many interactions because of how ridiculous and absurd all of it is. So, for example, here's one of my favorites. This guy asks us to take a letter to his friend, who, we have no idea who that is, and we have to, track him down. We're literally having to hop from rooftop to rooftop, talking to this person who leads us to that person, going down the line, going all over the city, all around every corner, and we ultimately end up in the same place we started, because the recipient is standing right next to the person who wrote the letter in the first place. And when they read the letter, it turns out to just be a really dumb prank that would only work on someone who was brain dead. Now all of this really does tickle, but we've got to ask ourselves what it's actually saying. What's the real message here? People are stupid? I mean, I agree, sure, yeah, but is there more to that? Yeah, definitely. For one thing, there's a fair bit of politics in this. For example, in the beginning of the game, there's this guy called Jack Duddy. He's the front runner for president, and of course he's stupid. But more critically, he says popular things because they're popular to say. No one knows about his political stance, not just because they're too stupid to figure it out, but because he doesn't actually give one. Meanwhile, one of his opponents screeches into a microphone for 45 minutes straight, because he believes that's the best way to reach his voters. Now you could make an argument that this is probably satirizing specific politicians, and there's probably some of that, but I personally think it's more broad than that. Almost like this is more of a caricature of the system itself, rather than specific people. So anyway, this guy Duddy, he gets elected to be president, because of course, even though he has no idea how to do any of it, and he won mainly because he was most popular, not because he was experienced or honest or intelligent. Not that the opposition is any of those things either, by the way. We don't really know much about them, except that maybe he spent a lot of time streaming. We have no clue if he's actually experienced or honest or intelligent himself. I mean, we can make our best guess, but it honestly doesn't matter. What the game is actually saying is that we're so stupid that we vote people into power like it's a popularity contest. Like Hot or Not Extra Dummy Edition. Alright, right about now, probably at least one of you watching is typing furiously in the comments about me comparing fiction to real life, or not everything is political, so on and so forth. Like this person here in one of my other videos. I was gonna read this out loud, but honestly you're gonna wish I didn't, so I won't. Now for some of you who think like this guy, I'd like you to understand that all our fiction is based on real life. That's our artistic basis because that's what we know. Stories become our collective thoughts and beliefs, our collective traumas, and our means of escaping them. And fundamentally, stories are a means for us to reflect on our own human nature better, from a more viscerally emotional core. Another angle, basically, for us to think about ourselves. And we've been doing this sort of thing since, a long time. Let me give you an example, one that's a bit more modern. You know the Book of Revelations, from the Christian Bible? Yeah, 7 seals, 7 angels, 7 trumpets, and then boom, the apocalypse. There's a few people who think that this is some kind of prophecy, and someday in the future, everyone's gonna die from just earthquakes and storms, and our souls will ascend, and so on and so forth. So don't believe them, they'll believe anything. But the prevailing wisdom among scholars is that the Book of Revelation is likely about early Christians trying to persevere through Imperial Roman cruelty. It makes sense. And this story was basically how they survived their oppression. Because the overall escape that Revelations gives is endure the Romans, because everyone's going to get got in the grand scheme of things. So here's biblical scholar Dan McClellan talking a little bit about that.
And that the unimaginably powerful empires around the Jewish people who are persecuting and oppressing them, or who are at least perceived to be doing so, are going to get what's coming to them. And so in some ways, it's a fantasy about all the people around us who are causing so many problems for us getting what's coming to them.
If you want to learn more about Dan, I've left a link to his channel down in the description. All that to say, if you aren't paying attention to what's actually being told in your favorite stories, you're actually living your life half asleep. You should rethink your opinion, because you're missing out. Okay, anyway, where was I? Oh right, dumb people. That includes the robots. And because of that, I'm pretty sure this game is actually taking shots at Gen AI. In fact, the very first screen we see when we boot up the game is an anti-AI message. Or at least, this game doesn't use any generative AI. And the story starts out with us fighting off said robot invasion. So I feel like that's a pretty solid connection, right? The comparison gets stronger the more we deal with the robots themselves. Mainly because during this so-called invasion, nothing really bad actually happened. I mean, no one got hurt and only one guy died. A journalist, by the way, for those who are curious. But yeah, not a whole lot happened during the invasion at all. And it's not because they weren't deadly, they had all kinds of weapons on them, it's because they're dumb. Think about how dumb the people are, all around. Then think about how much dumber their programming would be. Take for example this angel and devil mini-boss duo. They attacked a hotel not to kill anyone inside or demolish the place or anything like that. They were just slacking off. Or how about this defeated level boss tried to merge with another defeated level boss to create a final boss, but couldn't because they were too damaged to actually do it. And side note, most action games would typically end here after beating the final boss, quote unquote. But this game keeps on going because there's a lot more to it than that. Now, to find out what's going on with this whole invasion thing, why did it happen in the first place, we end up going to a party in disguise. Kind of like a bad spy movie. The party appears to be hosted by a tech company that's led by a billionaire CEO. Track so far? But again, I don't think this person represents any specific real-life person, even if we can make multiple parallels. It's really more about the tech industry as a whole. I mean, for example, the trees at the party here have shiny red apples, which hints at a very specific company, but the CEO in the game is nothing like the leadership there in that company, except maybe in one very specific way. Anyway, the CEO is hosting a release party for the next generation of robots, and even though we were here to figure out more about the robot invasion, we end up realizing that there really isn't one. That first one, that initial invasion, was actually just a publicity stunt. It was meant to showcase a robot labor that would do anything you say and give you whatever you want. It was basically prepping people to attend this party now. It's just a way to attract buyers for that next generation of robots. But not so much because the robots are actually useful. They don't seem to care about that. For example, this character who makes processed snack cakes. Her company recently had an issue where one of her workers fell into the machinery, where he kind of got ground up and distributed via their treats. It's a whole legal mess, and she wants to get robots to do the job, not because she's thinking about making things safer, it's because she doesn't want to keep getting sued by aggrieved families. Or how about this guy? He represents the guy who owns the company that makes tacos. And they're interested in the robots because it's free labor. And also, robots don't snitch to put their boss in jail, you know what I mean? One guy at the party says that he wants to replace all human labor with robots, which the main character really likes, by the way. As the party continues, the Bond villain basically has a speech. She reveals that the robots are not, in fact, to make humanity better, and she's just done all this to make more money. And for the character, being able to say that freely is kind of liberating. It makes all the people who want to buy the robots pretty damn happy. Even her competitors are happy at hearing this. Basically, all this is happening because a bunch of really rich people are going to be even richer. They want robots to replace everyone, and the real invasion isn't going to involve violence, just a whole lot of bank transfers. That's all. So yeah, this game is criticizing billionaires, the tech industry, and Gen AI. How stupid all of it is. But there's a lot more to it too. I just don't want to spoil any more than I already have. And it's just awesome. I love it. This game is made by a solo dev who also drew all of the art, and in my opinion, you should totally support his work. I've left a link to the game's Steam Store page down in the description, along with his Blue Sky link. Okay, now that most people have gone, I've got a confession to make. I lied a bit. I think one of the characters is actually smart, or at least dumb, if that makes sense. Anyway, if you've also got a guess, leave a comment about a character detail of theirs. See you in the next one. Peace.